All right, welcome everybody today. My name is Jason Pierce. I'm the mayor of Eagle, and we're going to be talking about the senior center and things in the city of Eagle. So, these webinars are being put on so that we can make sure that people really know what's happening in the city of Eagle, and not necessarily listen to the rumors or half truths that are out there. So, we're excited about putting these on and getting your questions and making sure we can answer them for you.
So, Mr. Mayor, can you tell us about the senior center? What happened there? What went down? Was it ever actually closed? What's the status? Can people go there still?
Yeah, so the senior center was never closed. Basically, the senior center was being run by a nonprofit that rented the senior center building. It was called Eagle Senior Citizens LLC nonprofit. They were renting the building for $1 a year. We did all the maintenance. We did all the cleaning and stuff like that there. They were also able to, under the nonprofit, rent it out and keep that money to help run their nonprofit. During COVID, they had come to the city multiple times asking for money to help keep themselves stable. They were saying that if they didn't get help from us, that they would have to close their doors and no longer be able to support the seniors. And so the council during that time was able to approve money from the general fund to go to them to keep them going. And as we started seeing this trend continue to happen and they continue to come to us and say that they would not be financially stable and delving into some other things, we realized that the nonprofit didn't seem like it was very stable moving forward. And so that was I believe the council as a whole looked at that and said, wait a minute, we really need to make sure that we take care of our seniors. And the city would not be able to pivot, with 1-2 day notice or even a week's notice if the nonprofit decided to close its doors. And so in the contract, it stated that we had a 120-day notice that we could give if we wanted to, not allow the nonprofit to use the facility anymore. And the council decided to take advantage of that and, kind of decide to have our recreation department take over the senior center. And as far as running it, and that way it just makes it really stable long-term and makes it so that, we don't have to worry about what's going to happen in the future, once the city starts to take over something like that. What was really great was, not necessarily great, but, we have 7,000 plus seniors in the city. And so we really wanted to make sure it was something for everybody. The average users was somewhere, in the 50 to 60 people are using it. Well, we need to put something together that's better than that because we have so many seniors and they can really work towards those that are 55 to all the way those that are 100 and plus if we have to. So our rec department put together a plan to make sure that we kept everything the way it was, at least for the first 6 to 12 months, so that we didn't disrupt the seniors that were going to it. And then, we were looking at what do we do to make it better. One of the things we're working on now is we're working on improvements to the senior center. We're painting it, cleaning up the inside, doing a bunch of maintenance on it to make sure that it's nice. We're also going to be actually renting some space out to the Eagle Food Bank, which is going to be a tremendous help. A lot of the seniors need help and have food insecurities. And so they'll be able to get their food right there at the senior center and not have to take multiple trips using the local mass transportation availabilities around and go to different places at different times. And so we're really excited about the things that are coming. We have a lot of new stuff that we're looking at bringing to the senior center. We've heard from a lot of our residents that, the senior center just didn't offer anything for me. And now folks, taxpayers get to come to the city and actually ask for the things that they want. They're not just answering to a nonprofit that might have different mission or thoughts about what they would like to see at the senior center. Now the residents have a really big say in it.
What do you see as the role of the senior center as kind of a central part of the Eagle community going forward?
Well, multiple things, right? You've got those that might have, like I said before, food insecurities and come and eat at Meals on Wheels and get a meal. And the big thing is the socialization. These seniors, some of them live at home. They don't have anyone to talk to all day long. This is their family, right? And to be able to provide those opportunities where they can come and really, enjoy camaraderie, share the stories. You know, how many of us have been with our grandparents and they share these great stories from the past, and when you get them together, they talk about all the great stories that they've lived through and been through, and they really have an opportunity to, you know, share those with folks that they may never have before, and get to hear stories from people that they may never have heard before. So I think it's just a great community as a whole type thing for them to be able to come down to the senior center and interact with folks.
So I'm sure it must frustrate you to see talk on social media saying that it was shut down or that the city took it away from the seniors. You know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, you know, it is sad, because what it is it's causing confusion in the senior community about what's happening, and that's not fair to them. We, like I said, from they closed it one day, the next day we had it open back up. So there's really been no disruption in service for the seniors at all. The most frustration part is our seniors are some of our most vulnerable in the community, and to see them get taken advantage of like that, I think is just horrible. And you know, we've been able to provide an excellent place for them to come to, a safe place for them to come to, and there was no reason for folks to spread the rumors that it was closed, to spread the rumors that, you know, we were going to just move staff in there, the rumors that, you know, we were going to sell it and put an apartment complex there. I mean, all those things are just so unfounded and ridiculous. And we want to make sure that we have a good senior center moving forward. And, you know, the interesting thing too is all 4 council members agreed to make this decision and voted on it.
All 4?
All 4.
Wow. Do you have any other thoughts on the senior center and you know, its transition?
No, I would. Well, the one thing I would just say is I'd like to encourage anybody who has a senior living in their home or taking care of them or in their family that lives, encourage them to come down. The numbers have been growing so much over the last few months that we've had taken responsibility for it. And so I would just encourage, bring your parents and your grandparents and the folks down to it. If you are, you know, a senior citizen and want to come down and use it yourself, I even go there for lunch and meet with folks. And there are other younger people that come too. You know, the Meals on Wheels, there's a price for those that are under 60. And then of course, over 60 is a suggested fee of paying, but you don't have to if you don't want to. So there's no pressure there either which way. And it's just fun. I love sitting around hearing the stories, talking to folks about, you know, what their lives were like. And I think a lot of people like doing that. So I would encourage people to just come down and see it.
What days can you go down and have lunch there?
Yeah. So lunches are Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. It starts at noon. Most people show up around 11:30, and sometimes there'll be some entertainment and music of some kind beforehand. And then there's bingo at 1 o'clock, and people will play bingo. Actually, I think bingo starts at 12:30, and it'll go on till about 1:30. And there's other card games and things like that. So, you know, come on down. It'll be open December 2nd during, you know, Country Christmas. So you can come see for yourself that the senior center is there and working.
So what other amenities does the city provide? You know, the city staff have taken over management of the senior center. What else does city staff do that people can take part in here in Eagle?
Oh my gosh, there's all kinds of things. So of course you've got our rec department does a lot of the fun stuff, right? That we love to see. So they do everything from Country Christmas to Harvest Fest to Fun Days to you know, the spring event we had, the jazz. They help with the jazz festival. There's all kinds of stuff that our rec department is doing. You know, for our kids, you've got soccer programs and basketball programs that the residents of Eagle can be a part of. We have art classes, and then you go to the library. I mean, the library has just a ton of things, from reading, you know, opportunities during the season. They have opportunities for, you know, for parents to come with their kids and have classes indoors and outdoors and listen to story time and music and dancing, and it's just a lot of fun. The library has a new family section that they've put in that is getting somewhere in the range of 500 to 600 people a day coming to. I mean, it's just amazing the stuff that the library is doing on top of it. And, you know, they're all part of the city. They're separate from the rec department, but they are able to do all kinds of fun stuff over there too.
One of the narratives that's going around on social media is that under your administration, the city budget has doubled and the number of staff in the city office has doubled. First of all, is that true? And if yes or no, what's the status? What's going on?
Well, so the numbers have gone up, but there's a few reasons for that. So first of all, with staffing, obviously we've had some growth over the last few years, and we need to bring in staff. What's really interesting is some of the bigger projects like Valnova and Avamore is they are paying those fees for those employees. And then the other thing is we brought landscaping and maintenance stuff in-house. Before, we were paying a whole lot more for that to be happening through private companies. And so not only were we able to bring it in and save the taxpayers money, but we were also able to make sure that it was done the way we wanted it. So for instance, if you just take the landscaping as one thing, the landscaping company we hired only came in once a week and mowed. Well, during the summer and the top times when we got soccer going on and all kinds of things outside, you sometimes need to mow twice or three times a week to make sure that, the stuff is ready for those sporting events. And now we're able to do that while still saving taxpayers money. We were able to cut the cleaning budget in half by bringing it in-house. We were just paying labor. We were supplying all of the material to do the cleaning to the folks that were doing it. And now we have staff here during the day for cleaning. So if someone tracks mud through the front lobby or, someone has an accident or an issue at a park, we can send people right out to get that stuff done, immediately and not have to wait till 10 o'clock at night when, that cleaning was being done before or after hours. And so that was really important to me to make sure that, we always have a good, clean face to the city of Eagle that people see. So, we have added staff in that instance, but it's saved the taxpayers money while doing that. Then when you look at the budget, there's a few things that have happened with that. We've had $6.5 million of ARPA money come into the city. We sold a piece of property for $9.1 million that came into and added money to the budget. But what we've been able to do over the years that have really helped is the fact that we've been able to create a capital plan and a capital maintenance plan. And so now we're saving money in the maintenance plan to make sure that we can take care of what we have. And then we're saving money to do future projects. And so we're bringing money in those opportunities. And then also we're reaching out and getting all this influx of local businesses to help support the different projects we're doing. So of course, that means we're able to save money for other things. And so it's kind of like a savings account, right? If you have a savings account and you're saving to buy a new vehicle and you save up $40,000 and then you go buy a $20,000 vehicle, yeah, your money got saved up to $40,000, but once you spend it, it comes back down. And we've proven that with the budget last year was at $60 million. We did a few things and projects that we had planned and were in the capital plan and maintenance things. And then this year, the budget went down to $52 million. And so that's what you want to see. I think a lot of people don't realize that the budget was being artificially kept low by the previous administration by spending every dime every year that came in. Right? If you spend every nickel, you never have money in the savings. And of course, then your budget ends up going up if you have a savings account, right? We have to show in our budget, if we have money in savings, that it's there. And so we've been able to do that. And we really set aside a good rainy day fund. And then also, like I talked about, a maintenance plan to make sure that we can take care of the things that we already have.
Let's see. I just got a question in from Leo. Says, what is the rationale for the city buying a shooting range? So I know that's a project that people have been talking about.
Yep. So first of all, I would say we're not buying one, we're building one. Not that there's a big difference, but there's a little bit there. So the big thing for us is we provide parks for so many different opportunities, right? And trails. We have trails. We have, splash pads. We have gazebos. We have places you can go fish. We have, stuff along the green belt, trails up in the foothills. We have all these opportunities. This is just another opportunity for the city of Eagle to have something for our residents to go out and recreate. And we heard from a lot of folks that live in Eagle that wanted the shooting range. They thought this was a great idea. Originally, it was planned to be put on BLM land that is up in the foothills because there's a lot of shooting that goes on up there and people are allowed to go up and shoot. But we were afraid that putting it on the BLM land, we would not have ultimate control of it in the future. So if all of a sudden the feds decided they didn't want shooting on the BLM land anymore, they could take it away. Well, we were lucky enough that a developer donated 600 acres to the city of Eagle in a place where it made sense to put in shooting range. And we're going to use 80 acres of that to not only putting a shooting range for firearms, but also for archery. So you'll be able to go up there and have a static archery. You'll have a 3D archery. You'll have bays for pistols. You'll have bays for rifles up to 150 yards, maybe even 200. We think we might be able to squeeze into that. And then also, one of the best parts I love about it is we've put aside 15 acres of it for a law enforcement training opportunity, which for me is not just about the shooting range. It's about the safety and the folks driving through our community to show a presence of policing without necessarily having to pay for it, right? So here you are, you give them the opportunity we're giving them the land, but they will build the facilities and it will be theirs. They get to, put it on the calendar of the usage and everything else for themselves, whoever wants to be part of this. And we will have, we could have Ada County Sheriff, we could have Meridian Police, we'd have a Garden City Police, we could have ATF, we could have FBI, we could have the Attorney General. I mean, all kinds of, different agencies coming through our city to go up there, which I think is huge for us as far as public safety is concerned. So, all of our parks cost us money every year. But the nice thing about something like this, some people have said, well, they fail everywhere else. We don't have to make money, right? We're providing a service for our residents. And this is something that I think the residents of Eagle, a vast majority of them will use and take advantage of, and will be a huge asset in the long run for the city of Eagle.
Leo follows up with a question about the cost of the shooting range. Do you know how much it's costing the city to build this?
Well, so we have different things that have come in. We're looking at, it's probably going to be about a $5 million price tag to build it. But what we're doing is we're going out and we're getting those local businesses and nonprofits and organizations that want to put money towards this. So our goal is to make sure that this costs us as little as possible. So my guess is when we're done, you're probably going to be looking at the city, it costing taxpayers maybe about $750,000. But when you look at, we just did a $2 million improvement to Merrill Park. That wasn't building the whole park. That was just to redo the splash pad and the playground. And so for something like this, and then the other part about it is for long-term maintenance, there will be a charge to use it. So that will take care of. We don't do that at the splash pads or at the other places where we can do it with this. So for us, long-term, it's not going to cost the taxpayers a lot, but it's going to be a huge asset for us as taxpayers.
Speaking of guns, Neil writes in asking about the status of Eagle being a Second Amendment sanctuary city. Can you go into what that means?
Yeah, so of course, Idaho as a state is a Second Amendment sanctuary state, but we really wanted to make sure with all the pressures that were going on back in the early 2021 around the country, that the city of Eagle put out there and made sure that the people that lived here and the people that were going to move here to understand what kind of community we were, and that we were always going to protect our Second Amendment rights. So if the feds decided to do something, if the state decided to do something, the Eagle residents are going to stand up and make sure they know that you will have the right to bear arms. And we truly respect and want to make sure folks understand the Second Amendment is important to us.
I have a question from Jill, going back to the idea of parks. Whatever happened to the park that was going to be built over on Floating Feather, and what happened to any of the funds that were connected to that?
Yep. So there's a couple things. So that park was originally purchased with $2.5 million of what's called impact fee money that comes from new development. So every time a new house is built, they pay a park impact fee. They purchased 35 acres, put another $2 million of infrastructure into it. So we had to build a collector road through it, which was going to be about $1 million. And these were costs back from 2020, 2019. And then we had to spend about $1 million to tile a ditch that went through it in order to make it usable as the park, because it was split in half by the ditch. And so you're looking at $4.5 million being put into this property before you even start turning a shovel or building anything. And so then you look at where that place was on Floating Feather. It was backing up to 1 acre lots that have 3 rail vinyl fence. They're on 1 acre lots, right? They didn't buy 1 acre lots to have a dog park and baseball fields right next to them. They bought 1 acres to get away from stuff. You look across the street, there's 2-acre parcels. And so, this was an area where folks kind of, moved to get away. And here we are going to be driving folks to something like this. The other thing is Floating Feather is already so busy at some peak times with, the high school and the middle school being right off it and everything else. And so it was just one of those things where that park did not make sense. You're going to be driving 2,000 people a day. Well, let me rephrase that, 2,000 trips, probably around 500 to 600 people a day to our park. And then all of a sudden you're driving all these trips to that area. The other thing too is it didn't really have adequate parking. You would have had people parking inside the neighborhoods adjacent to it. And the Colony, for instance, doesn't have sidewalks, because it was meant to be a rural 1-acre type place, not a, higher density area that had sidewalks. And so when we looked at all these things, it just didn't make sense for a place to be a park. It was very strict in the way it was going to have to be developed by a developer, where it was going to have to go from 1-acre lots up against the Colony and feather into 1/3 acres over towards the high school closer, where people already have 1/3 acre lots. And so we knew there wasn't going to be a lot of interpretation about how a developer would have to develop it. And so we decided to sell it. We got $9.1 million for that property. So from 2.5 purchase to 9.1, we had extra to go out and look for something different. So we turned around and started working with the Valnova folks, and we ended up purchasing a 95-acre park space. So we went from 35 acres to 95 acres. We were able to do that with a couple of different things. One is we bought a 10-acre lot that was still part of someone else's property that was there. And then the Valnova folks, they donated 85 acres. So we paid $2 million for the 10 acres. We gave Valnova, we paid $2.5 million in cash as a down payment for the 85 acres. And so now here we had that $4.5 million we had invested in a 35-acre park into a 95-acre park. Now, there is a $7.5 million due to Valnova over the lifetime of their project, but that is a no-interest loan that'll be paid back by the people who build homes in Valnova. So when a home builder builds a home and someone, they have to pay their park impact fees, those fees will go to Valnova until they get their $7.5 million. Now, the best part about it is if they don't build enough homes to get to $7.5 million, then they don't get $7.5 million. They only get what they put into it, right? So this is the development paying for itself, future development. And the other thing is if they pay more over the life of their project than $7.5 million, that money will go back into our park impact fees. And so it was a win-win situation, out of the box type deal that we were able to make to get a tremendous asset for the city of Eagle moving forward.
I have a question come in asking if there will be pickleball courts at the new park.
Of course, that's one of the hot things. I think we only had about 6 pickleball courts, and with the discussions that we've had from folks, I think we're going to have to triple that number and make sure we get them there. It's the hot new thing happening around, and I don't think there could ever be enough from what I'm hearing from folks.
Now, what about the parks up in Avamore? How are those going to be paid for? Is that going to come out of Eagle taxpayers' money?
Yeah, so what was really good about the annexation of Avamore and going through the process, and I really want to thank the Planning and Zoning Commission for making a big deal about the fact that the parks were going to be paid for by taxpayers and things like that, and they didn't really want to see that because Avamore listened. And when they ended up bringing the project to the city of Eagle, they ended up taking on a lot of that infrastructure and making sure it gets done through their development and the future taxes and money that they get from selling things up there and not from existing taxpayers down here. That was one of the big things in the original financial analysis that was put out, was how the capital improvements that the city of Eagle would have had made if they brought in Avamore. So I'm really excited about the fact that we were able to get them to pay for those things moving forward. And then also, they are also putting together ways that they will pay to maintain it moving forward, which is something that we've pushed for since the early 2000s with projects like Legacy. There's a lot of parks and trails and stuff in there, not parks, but trails and Legacy that are taken care of by the HOA, but the public as a whole get to use. And we did that on purpose because future development paid for it, and it didn't fall on the backs of the existing taxpayers. And we did the same thing with Spring Valley, Valnova when it came through, and we did the same thing with Avamore, making sure that that happens. Avamore residents will still even have to pay park impact fees that will be used down here and also be used up there for stuff they're doing.
So shifting gears a little bit, Leo has another question here about the budget. And he's wondering why more money wasn't spent on police protection. So I think that gives us an opportunity to talk about public safety in general. How much money are we spending on public safety, on police? Is that enough? Do we need more? What was the issue with the contract? Can you go into all that?
Sure. So just so you know, since I became mayor, the police budget has gone up 24%. We've added 4 new officers. We added a community officer. We've done other things outside of just that too. We have a company that monitors the camera at our parks, right? And so when something happens at our parks, our officers get a phone call at the non-emergency dispatch, and they are able to go out only through the parks when it's needed between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. So that's a huge thing to be able to help and make sure that folks are safe in the parks and that things aren't happening. We've actually been able to take vandalism down to almost nothing in our parks because of that, where we were spending $70,000, $80,000 a year and stuff like that. Now we're down to, we had 1 instance in the last year since we've implemented this. The other thing that we've done recently is Councilmember Russell had gone out and found us a STEP grant that we partnered with the Ada County Sheriff, who we contract with our police, and we're going to be able to get money from the state to help us pay for 2 more officers and their time throughout the city, which is great. These are the out-of-the-box thinking things that we need to have happen. So that's exciting. As far as the contract and what was going on is we were just looking to make sure that we were looking out for the taxpayer of Eagle's money. We contract with the sheriff's department. So really looking at that line between what the sheriff is supposed to provide and what the city of Eagle police is supposed to provide, and making sure we're not blurring that. And so that's kind of what that was. We have discussions with contracts with folks all the time. So that's, just what we need to do. We need to be looking out for the taxpayers and just having those discussions. And they're tough sometimes to have, but we have to be having them. We've always done what the sheriff's department has asked. When I first became mayor, believe it or not, Sheriff Clifford was our police chief at the time. He came in and he sat down with me and he said, Jason, I don't think we need to add any officers right now. Last year we added 2. It looks like we're doing pretty good. And he said, but we're really going to have to make sure we look at the budget next year and see what comes up with that. So the following year, him and I got together and he was talking about, yeah, we probably should add 2. We're getting to that place where we don't want to overextend our officers. And so when we talked about it, what we decided was to add 2 officers that specifically use their time on the trails, on the Greenbelt, and in our parks. Just because it's showing that presence out there really makes people mind their P's and Q's. And so we put that in place and hired 2 officers for that. When we annexed Avamore, we went through some really long conversations with Avamore, the sheriff's department, and myself on what was going to be needed. And it was kind of interesting in that meeting. It was kind of like the sheriff's department and Avamore going back and forth about what they needed. And at one point I had to say, okay, guys, this isn't about you guys deciding what you need. I need the sheriff to tell me what he needs if we are going to annex Avamore. And so what was great about that was they came back and they said, we're going to need 2 extra officers if you're going to annex Avamore to be able to provide the services that they will expect being in city limits. And that's what we did. That came about in front of us. That's what we provided for them. And so it's all worked out. Like I said, I value and really cherish the relationship we have with the sheriff's department. It's great that, Sheriff Clifford was our chief and now he's the sheriff. And I think we have a relationship where we understand that, we're going to make sure we're looking out for each other on both sides. But when it comes to the end, it's public safety is always going to be number 1 and making sure we're doing what's best for the city.
Apparently, there's a rumor going around on social media that you didn't actually meet with the sheriff. So that's false, right?
Yes, no, we met multiple times on things. Yeah.
So can you go into a little more detail about the advantages of using Ada County Sheriff as our police, having a contract there instead of just having our own in-house police department?
Yeah, I will say there's a lot of different things. So one of the main things is the fact of just the training and the vernacular and things that they use between each other, right? So if you have an issue where the sheriff are coming in to back something up, as the Eagle Police, they're all trained and they're all brought on and brought up to speed on everything the sheriff is doing. So they know how they work with each other and the vernacular back and forth. And I think that helps tremendously. I think a cost of scale, right? Where you're looking at the fact that Eagle, because of the way we're building our community, there aren't a lot of issues coming from Eagle residents. There are some, but they're not the same social type issues that you would see in an area that has higher density and more folks living in it. And so a lot of our stuff is pass-through stuff, and a lot of our stuff is things that people are coming from other places into Eagle and having those issues. And so for us to have that relationship with them, we don't have to have necessarily as many officers as other cities might, but we get the backing of the sheriff's department to help us in those instances, those one-offs when something big does happen coming through our community. You know, we have a network of, I think Sheriff Clifford said the other day, he's got 400 officers, right? And so we have a network of those folks that are available at our disposal at any time. And I think the contract helps a little bit out with making sure our neighbor county area is taken care of a little better. County sheriffing is usually done a lot different than city policing. And so having those assets right there for those folks is going to be tremendous. Even with the annexation of Avamore, people have to remember we didn't annex all of Avamore. We only annexed 2/3 of it, which means the sheriff still has to provide policing to 1/3. And so how does that work and happen? And with this relationship, I think it really works well.
And does it save money to have to outsource?
Oh, yeah, it saves tremendous amount of money. I mean, you look at a city like Garden City, they're spending $2 to $3 million more a year in policing for a city half the size just because of that. And so, it just saves a ton of money because you don't have to have all the extra administration. You don't have to have all the extra officers. You're pulling in, like I said, there's times when the sheriff's department needs our officers to go out and help them in the county, but then there's times when they need to have their officers come up and help us in the city, and we're able to provide the best service.
I have a question relating to the structure of city government. There's a lot of cities out there, including the one where your opponent once served on the council and as mayor, that are, I guess, what they call a weak mayor city manager system, whereas Eagle is more of the strong mayor system. It's a very different structure. Can you talk about that, how it relates to your role as mayor and how it's different from other municipalities?
Yeah, one of the things is as a strong mayor, you're making a lot of decisions throughout the day on the running of the day-to-day of the city. When you're talking about a city manager, they're making those decisions. So as a mayor, you basically come in and you just kind of ask what's going on. And you might give a couple, opinions here or there, or you might even want something done, but you're not involved in that actually happening. Right? You don't have to get your fingernails dirty and do the work, right? And probably, as a mayor, it's more in the city manager type thing. It's more of a kissing babies and shaking hands type thing. For me, I'm involved in a lot of the day-to-day things that go on. We have department heads, obviously, that do their work and what they're doing. The other thing about a city manager is, for me, that's really where bureaucracy comes in, right? That's where you have people that are there for a long time and they keep pushing their visions and their stuff. What you have here is, as a mayor and as a council, you have to really get in and know exactly what's going on in your community, right? You don't just show up on Tuesdays and, vote on things. You're actually getting involved. And, that's what the thing so many of the other council members have done. They've gotten involved. They've brought things to the table. They've brought things forward. My opponent hasn't brought anything in 4 years. I mean, even with this police issue that he has brought up, he had to take a video and audio from last year in July, a year ago, That was the last time he brought anything up. And here you've got a council member like Helen Russell who goes out and finds, a grant. Why weren't these things done by, a council member who has done nothing but talk about public safety happening in the community, and he's the public safety guy, right? And where has he been on these grants? Why hasn't he gone out and gotten these? And I think that's, the difference between being a strong mayor and having a city manager, right? He wants to just come in and go, hey, here's my idea, and then somebody else runs with it. And that's just not how things get done here. You've got to really put the time and effort in. I mean, I'm probably putting 12 to 16 hours a day into the city of Eagle. And, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, well, you're not doing your job. This isn't a job. This is a lifestyle. This is something that you're not just clocking in from 8 to 5, right? My day starts at 5 a.m. and there's times I'm taking calls at 10 p.m. And I think people really need to realize that we've got to have somebody that does that. And if you're going to have somebody that's going to come in and try to hire a chief of staff or try to hire a, city manager or those types of things, this city's really going to start going in the wrong direction because you're going to have bureaucracy. And that is what we have been trying to get rid of throughout our country, let alone it happening right here in Eagle, Idaho. And so, that's what my opponent was in Hollister, California, right? He was elected to city council. Then the city council really rotates the mayor every year, and they're just a figurehead. They're not in there making the decisions, running an operation. And I'll tell you, I don't think he's ever had the ability to do a budget, to actually have a budget and put it together, to actually take care of and have to work with 80 different employees. I just don't think that stuff has ever happened for him. And it's going to be a learning curve that I'll tell you right now, the Eagle residents cannot afford to have someone learning on the job. And when you say, for the last 4 months, you just kind of are a mushroom in the closet and you come out every so often to vote on things, that's your choice. That has been his choice of how he's wanted to come. As a matter of fact, when he was elected as the president of the council, he came to me and goes, what do I do now? And I go, Brad, what do you want to do? What are the things you want to bring to the table? What are the things that you want to get the council on board for? Charlie, the 2 years before, came in with a conservation education program would help preserve farmland and open space in the city of Eagle and have future developments and people that move here pay for that. Those things are big things that come through. You have Helen, like I said, that did the STEP grant. Melissa's brought things forward that she wants to see done in the city. You have to be proactive in things, whether you're the mayor or a council member.
Oh, it sounds like a big job.
It is, but it's worth it.
Yeah. A couple other questions have come in. Stephen asked, what's the budget for our fire department in Eagle?
The budget for the fire department. So I'll be honest with you. I think it's in the range of about $10 million a year, but the fire is a district and it's a separate entity. So it has nothing to do with what the city of Eagle, we don't provide that service. And the district, remember, is bigger than the city of Eagle. It goes outside. They actually take care of Hidden Springs. They take care of Avamore even before we annexed it. So it's not part of the city. Their taxing area is outside of us.
So can you go into a little more detail on that? What's the difference between what is part of the city and what's a separate taxing district?
Yeah, so we have about 12 different taxing districts on your tax bill, and some are different than others. Like some people will pay to the Star Cemetery, some people will pay to the Dry Creek Cemetery, some people pay to the Star Fire, and some people pay to the Eagle Fire, believe it or not. Some people pay to Boise School District, some people pay to West Ada School District. This is all in Eagle alone. So for us, the Eagle City taxes, what we cover in ours are we cover parks and trails, we cover the running of the city, the maintenance of the city, and we cover policing. And that's pretty much about it. There's a lot of it that's not the city. Like I said, the fire district, the school district, the sewer district. All those folks are elected differently. ACHD, Ada County, they're all elected differently, and they all run different budgets and answer to more than just City of Eagle residents.
So most people, when asked what their biggest issues are, it's going to be schools, it's going to be roads. But you're saying that neither of those things are actually directly under the purview of the mayor and council.
Correct. And, that's one of the things is we can work with and try to get things done Eagle's way, but you've got to get buy-in from those folks, right? ACHD is the only one of its kind in the country. where once a city annexes property, that the county is still in charge of taking care of those roads. I'd love it if the city of Eagle could be in control of our own roads, right? Because then we could decide that if roads can't handle new development, then we can say no. But if ACHD says that a road can handle the traffic, we can't use that as a reason not to approve a project. And so if we had that control, it would be better. If you look at the schools, the same thing. I would love to be able to collect impact fees for schools. I've been working with the legislature on this. How do we make this happen so that the new homes that are being built are paying into the school system other than just the taxes that you pay? Because a lot of the taxes that we end up paying in schools comes to build new buildings and stuff from growth. So why not put that on the new people that are moving here or the new homes that are being built? Because I'll be honest with you, even when I talk about, the new people moving here, it might not be, but it's folks that are setting their budget by purchasing a new home. So you that live here today, if you decide to sell the home that you're in and go buy a new home, and in that cost of that is an impact fee for something, right? Whether it's schools, whether it's roads, whether it's whatever, well, you know what you're setting your budget at. But if you continue to put it on the residents that are already here that have bought things, they already set their budget and they don't expect these extra expenses to keep coming on and on. And especially when you think about our retired folks that end up, they paid their house off and they're on Social Security, and now all they've got is property taxes and they have to sell their home because they can't even, afford to pay their property taxes.
So we're nearing the end of our talk this morning. Remind people that we'll be back at 6 p.m. this evening and then again tomorrow. What would you say is your proudest accomplishment that you and the council have carried out in the last 4 years?
Wow, there's been so many. I mean, I'll really say I've got a name. I don't think there's one. I think it's acquiring 95 acres for a sports complex for the future of our Eagle. I think it's acquiring 600 acres that we get to put a shooting sports park on, which is going to be tremendous for the future of Eagle. I think it's a 2A sanctuary city. I think it's, believe it or not, it's the annexation of Avamore and making sure that we get it done Eagle's way. 75% of that project is going to be open space forever in the foothills that the public will now own and be a part of. That just doesn't happen. You got cities like Boise that are spending, $100,000 an acre to buy open space in the foothills now because they didn't plan for it earlier in their city start. And so, these are forward-thinking things, long-term looking things. And what I really appreciate with the council and myself is the fact that we are looking out past the next 5 years. We're looking out 20, 30, 40 years down the road so that our kids, grandkids, and everybody else can enjoy this place like we have and won't have to pick up and leave like so many have.